listeners. Good to see you coming back to talk with Anne and Spirit. And today's guest, we have Susie Antara. Hopefully, I've said that.
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
a multifaceted individual, deeply immersed in spiritual and healing arts, my kind of woman, so she is. On inspiration from crystals and esoteric practices to foster balance and healing. Through meditation, she channels angels to share their wisdom, guiding others through art, oracle cards, teachings, while her digital creations and writing further amplify her mission to bring joy and ease and healing to others worldwide. Hello, Susie. How are you doing, my darling?
Hi, wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. Oh, I'm
It's
so
so
excited.
So tell me, what got you on the path? Some people have always been on the path.
Mm,
I was about 40, burnout, and that's when I knew there had to be a different way. So what put you on this path?
wow. It was a deeply transformational event, really. And I guess some people would see it like this, but others may not. My husband passed away when I was 34 years old. Prior to that, I'd always had a little bit of interest in card readings, things like that. And he was always very, whoa, load of woo nonsense sort of things. Being we had a young family, things like that, I didn't really think I was spiritual, but I always used to go for card readings and they'd say, oh, this is something you could do. And when you think, nah, it's not for me,
Um,
what, how? I couldn't do this. Anyway, that was my interest prior to this. And then, as I say, my husband passed away when I was 34 years old, just suddenly out of the blue, massive heart attack. And it was 3 nights after he'd passed, I woke up, felt somebody in the room. My sons and my mum were fast asleep. And you just get that feeling that there's a presence. And of course, initially I was like, oh, who's in the room? And then just realized there was nobody else, but started to see this light on the far side of the wall. And it started off as a little pinprick. So again, it's, am I seeing it? Whatever. Anyway, this light got bigger and bigger and bigger and just literally filled the whole of the wall. And as I looked, I could see a tunnel. And as I looked down the tunnel, I could see a figure in the far distance. And this figure started to move towards me, and it was getting bigger and bigger. And the only way I can describe it, and obviously for our international listeners, they may not know this, but here in the UK, we had an advert for what we call sweet corn on the cob, and he was called the Jolly Green Giant. And this is how weird your thoughts are when these things are happening. Is I remember looking and thinking, wow, he's as big as the Jolly Green Giant, but he was also the same size as a normal man stood in a door frame. So I had this whole concept of this image that was totally out of proportion but fitted. Anyway, as I looked, this image was wearing a long white robe, had long dark hair, most beautiful blue eyes I have ever seen. And I'm laid there thinking, okay, what's going on? And I can remember that feeling this overwhelming sense of love,
yeah.
and the tears started flowing. And then I saw my husband laid at this being's feet, and he picked him up and held him in his arms. Now, again, this is how this visual works: is here he was holding my husband, who was a full-size man, in his arms like a baby. So I was like, okay, just going with it at this point, because I partly felt frozen, but I was awake. I was looking around the room, looking at my mum and the boys, thinking, why have they not woken up? This light's so bright. And I remember thinking, please don't hurt him, because the one thing that had been with me from his passing was that he'd suffered. Because obviously, even though he literally fell down in front of me with the heart attack, I still didn't know whether he'd suffered or not. And I remember saying for those 3 days, please don't let him have suffered. Please don't let him. Anyway, he was holding. He unzipped his chest. And again, the only visual I can say is sleeping bags have great big thick zips, don't they? And it was like this huge, great big thick zip down his chest. And he just unzipped him. And again, it was like, that's just so weird. It made me smile and giggle, but crying at the same time. So there was all these emotions going on. And he took his heart out, held it in his hands, folded it up, placed it back in Bob's chest, zipped him up, folded him up into his arms like this, and walked back into the light. And I'm going goosebumpy now just talking about it. And in that moment, I absolutely knew he hadn't suffered, that he was safe and well. And in the world of spirit, or wherever we believe we transition to when we pass. And it was that, even though obviously I was going through all the grieving and the emotions, there was an element of comfort as well. And I got up, went downstairs, still crying, made a cup of tea. My dad was there. He came out, picked me up, took me into the living room. I sat on his lap, age 34, sitting on my dad's lap, being hugged. And yeah, and that vision has stayed with me ever since. So that started me thinking, obviously, there's more to life. There's more to what I'm doing in this life than we believe or know. So I started looking for people who could help me with angelic work. So I found a couple of teachers, mentors, guides to do some angelic training, as you do. You always find the little courses and everything out there. But it wasn't really until another 10 years later when I went through bankruptcy. And I went through this bankruptcy, and that was it. I'd literally was devastated. I'd lost my home, my cars. I was very blessed that my family, my sons were able to go and live with my parents. So I wasn't homeless, but it felt like it. And then again, angelic visions came in, and a lot stronger this time. And I just was guided to follow a path of crystals, angels, meditation, and that there's so much more to it, but that is it in a nutshell, really. But one of the things that I always thought then and still feel now is that I've had this experience. I know what this feels like. How can I help others? Because one of the sad things that I came across for me after my bankruptcy was I read in the local paper about a young man who was in his late 20s, had two sons. So again, this resonated, deeply in debt, lost everything, but very sadly took his own life. And I just thought, if I can help one person through this, through whatever's going on for them, doesn't have to be those two particular things. But if I can help one person shift so that they don't have to do that, or they don't feel lost, they don't feel alone in the world, then that's me shining my light, and I've helped somebody. And that's where it really what took me on this journey, and still takes me on this journey.
Yeah, totally. And I totally get it. I mean, I can resonate with that because, as I said earlier to you, I used to be a bridal designer, and I used had a few shops. But I was a workaholic. I taught full time. I was a single parent of two boys.
Wow.
Had about 6 staff. And I was looked after my mum and dad also, and I had so much responsibility. It was unreal, the responsibility and bankruptcy. And I never even told anybody, never told
No.
us what I
Yeah.
went through. So ashamed. And
Absolutely.
it wasn't until I wrote my first book and wrote everything in it. But even
Wow.
my best friends didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it so set me free.
Yeah.
Or when I realized, that I went through that myself, didn't tell anybody. And I remember breaking down in the kitchen when I had a beautiful home, like breaking down the kitchen, and my oldest son turning around and saying to me, "At least we know you're human."
Wow. Yes. Yeah. Because you held it. Yeah. And I understand that. I
That
mean,
weakness, that
yeah.
vulnerability.
Yeah, you do, and you feel the guilt and the shame that goes with it. And I think that stems back from years ago, perhaps our parents' generation and their generations before that. And at the time I was going through mine, the only people I told was my mum and dad, because obviously we needed somewhere to be able to go and live. So I didn't tell my brother and my sister. I didn't tell any work colleagues. I didn't tell any friends, very much the same, because I felt so guilty and so ashamed. The guilt was the strongest because obviously I'd lost the roof over my sons, who were teenagers then. Their head, they had no, effectively, what I considered to be lost them their home through my errors of judgment. And it wasn't until I actually went on a course, and again, this is how the angels work, or spirit, whoever you believe in, whatever you feel drawn to. But for me, it's the angels. And I just thought, I need to do something different. I've worked in the NHS. I was an operating theatre nurse. That was my life career. I loved it. But I got to a point where I hated it. And obviously that was all mixed up and combined with what was going on with the home and everything, which I didn't realize at the time, but that became an awareness later. And I just remember thinking, what can I do? I want to work with angels. And at the time, Doreen Virtue was doing a lot of angelic training. And I was like, okay, let's have a look. So I went and looked at her courses to go to, I think it was California, to do her training, hotels, accommodation, flights. The training was something like, and we're talking back in 2006, it was something like £5,000. So I was like, A, I haven't got £5,000 because I'm going bankrupt. B, if I did have it, they would take it. So what could I do? And I remember thinking, I really want to do something. And the next day, an advert popped up on the internet. And it's not like it is today with all the social media that we've got. It's like AOL.com, those sort of things. You went on a website and you had little banners, didn't you? As you still do. But anyway, this advert popped up and it said, would 5 days working with an archangel change your life? And I was like, wow, okay, I need to listen to this. So I followed it. I emailed the lady who was running the course to ask her how much it was. And she came back and she said, I think it was something like £397. Now, this was a 5-day retreat in Wales, all inclusive, 3 meals a day, plus whatever trainings were going on for these 5 days. And I just thought that would be so amazing. I haven't got £400. So I emailed her back and I said, thank you very much for the information, blah, blah, blah. Really sorry, can't come. Put the lid down on my laptop, went downstairs, made a cup of tea. My phone rang, picked it up, and this voice said, oh, hi, this is Jessica, ringing you about the course. Just wanted to check in and see if you were interested in coming and still wanted the place. And I went, oh my God, I have literally just sent you an email. And she said, oh, I've not seen it. So I explained. She said, I feel it in my water. And I'll never forget these words. I feel it in my water that you need to be here. Can you raise the train fare to get here? So I was like, I'll check and see. So of course, as you do. So I said, yes, I can do that. She said, fine. Should you get your train fare? We'll pick you up from the station. You come for the week and we will sort it out afterwards. I went down and did that week. I walked in petrified. I was one of the people that hid behind the pillar, tried not to be seen, discovered 5 other women on this course, all going bankrupt, all in the same boat, all feeling the same emotions. And at the end of the week, I walked out transformed. And I just knew that I had to take responsibility for my actions. It was only me that made the choices that I made to get loans, get credit cards, all of that. And interesting, in meditation in that week, I got this phrase and I made it one of my little inspirational card quotes. Only you put your foot on the accelerator pedal of life. And in that moment, I knew I had to take full responsibility for everything that had happened, because at that time it was always everybody else's fault. It wasn't my fault. And once I did that, it was so liberating. It was so freeing. And I came back, and that's when I didn't go out and blazing it to the world. But when somebody asked me what was going on in my life or how I was, I then told them and I shared. And the reason I'm saying this as well is because we'd been living with my parents by this point, probably 4 or 5 months. Now, I'd only anticipated being there about 2 or 3 months, looking for somewhere to rent. And then I'd found this house that I really fell in love with, wanted to rent. And I had a little bit of savings that I'd been tucking away in readiness for renting. And ultimately, when I worked it out, I was £1,000 short because of my bankruptcy. I needed to pay 6 months' rent in advance. So I was in work one day, and again, blessedly, this is how it works. One of my work colleagues was like, "Why are you living?" Just out of the blue, started to say, "Why are you living with your mum and dad?" So I told her, not afraid anymore to share my story. And a consultant that I was working with doing anesthetics at the time, we were sat with the patient and he said, "I overheard your conversation. Do you mind me asking what's going on?" So I told, because we were good friends anyway through work. So I told him that I was £1,000 short to rent this house, not for a minute thinking that the next words coming out of his mouth were going to be what they were. And he looked me in the eye and he just said, "My sister in the Czech Republic is going through exactly the same thing as you. She's just lost her business." He said, "So I understand." And he went, "And my wife, when she was younger, had debt issues and problems." He said, "So I understand that as well." He said, "If I lend you the £1,000, would that help?" You could have picked me up off the floor, Anne. My chin hit the bottom. Literally, I was speechless. I'm like, this man who I work with, we're friends, but just said, and I went, that even though I feel speechless. And I just said, "That's one, thank you. Please check with your wife first, because I don't want her thinking that you're giving some strange woman that she's never met this money." But that's what happened. He lent me the money. We got our house and we lived there for almost 10 years.
And
So
then,
earth
yeah,
angels, they all are around us.
amazing how they help us. We ask for that help. And you've also
Absolutely.
got your oracle cards. Tell us a wee bit about your oracle.
Wow. Okay. So this stems from my school years. I loved artwork at school, absolutely loved it. But of course, in those days, I'm 64 years old. So obviously, we're talking a lot of years now that I was at school. It was always still art, portrait art, whereas I like to be a bit abstract and a bit random and never really could quite get the dimensions for still artwork. But I remember doing as you do your art lessons, up until it's time to choose your exams. And I was having to pick my O levels as they were in those days, and I wanted to do art. And again, this is how things stay stuck with you. And that's a whole different thing as well, when we can talk about. But it wasn't until I started my spiritual work that I recalled my art teacher said, because I really wanted to, I don't know, I just felt drawn to wanting to draw angels. And every time I started, I had a blank piece of paper, nothing would come. And then I remember my art teacher saying to me at school, "You don't go on and do your O level art. You'll never make an artist. You're no good."
Yeah. Mhm.
So the subconscious absorbed that, and for all those years. So, of course, when it came to like trying to meditate and draw my spirit guides or do any sort of artwork, it was just a blank. It was like this brick wall, couldn't do it. And then a friend of mine ran a retreat where she was an artist and a beautifully fantastic artist. So she ran this retreat where we went and we would do artwork to open us up, if you like, to that. So I thought, what have I got to lose? If I don't get the artwork, it'll be a weekend of meeting friends and getting together and having a really good time. Anyway, we did this meditation, and the picture that came out onto the canvas just blew me away. It wasn't anything for me, it was perfect. I'd actually produced some artwork. And from then it just began to flow. And somebody else I talked to just said, when you're sat, much like we are now, if we were just on the phone talking, I'd have a pencil and a paper and I'd just be doodling, just doodle, just allow yourself just to be, let it flow. And then my artwork just flew from that. It took another 15 years of doing that to start really creating something. And I obviously all the pictures that I drew, I just kept them in a folder. And then one day I was like, these would make an oracle deck. So I just took photographs of them, uploaded them, tweaked them a little bit on Canva, and they are actually now a physical deck that I've got. They'll be downstairs somewhere, I think. But yeah, so that was my first ever oracle deck, which consists of my own artwork as well.
And if you
And
were
then
to do, sorry, on you go. On you go.
and then it just flew from there. It just flowed from there, really.
Yeah. And if you were to do, for the listeners who are watching this, if you were to do a reading for them right now for one card, would you like to do that for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's do that one card.
Sure.
And Susie's is like me. She has her deck on Deckable, which is deckable.com, which is
I don't
digital.
actually, sorry to interrupt, Darling. I don't actually have my deck up yet, so I'd be using one of
Will
our
be
other
nice.
I'll be using one of our other lovely ladies that we've got in the group with us. Or I've got two that I'll use.
Mhm. On you go then. But the thing is, you could have actually used them in Canva. You could have just drew one of the cards
Oh,
of
okay. I can do
both.
that as well.
I would do that. I would
Let
think it'd
okay.
be nice to use your own cards.
All right.
Just there.
So I'm gonna play with the brand new deck that I'm creating that we were talking about earlier because I just think it's really lovely. So I'll just do a little bit of a scroll flow and see which one jumps out as. Okay. So the card that's come up, if I can get it to, I don't know if you'll be able to see. So this is my new deck that's going to be uploaded to Deckable very soon. And I have called them, I'll just give you the name of them. So just remember trance, because I'm in Canva. The Whimsical Witch's Oracle.
Very good. What a lovely name.
And I actually, to be honest, I actually did put them out there on social media as a little bit of a post, and I've had 2 or 3 people already said they want to buy them, so that's a good start. But yeah, so we have got this one is Granny Glimmerbroom, and the word is trance, and then the rune on here is Othala, which is known for its ancestral property. So I'll read you the meanings and then I'll do. So trance is a state of complete mental absorption or deep musing, an unconscious or hypnotic condition. And Othala, the rune, refers either to the family home of the person seeking advice or to the spiritual home. This rune signifies rootedness and family ties, as well as material, genetic, and spiritual heritage. It is the rune of demarcation, protection, and privacy, but also of one's identity. And my sense as I'm drawing into the energy of this card is very much that at the present moment, I feel for those that come and watch this, we're not in a trance as in we are completely not aware of what's going on, but I feel that we're just in a place of stasis at the moment. Sometimes when you're in the trance state, it gives you that sense of just being in one place, doesn't it? And I'm just really feeling that at the moment for a lot of us, it's almost like we're feeling a bit stuck, a bit stagnant, a bit not able to move. And it's family ties as well that are perhaps holding us in place. There's this energy of feeling that we've got to do so much for everybody else that we forget to do for ourselves as well. As I look at Granny Glimmerbroom, it's like she's wanting you to just move forward, just take that step out of this sort of trance-like state of just being stuck and moving into what's coming around for us. There's so much going on around in the world at the moment. There's so many changes that are taking place that I do feel we focus more on the external than we do on what's going on inside of us, and just this energy of feeling we need to go within and really just flip ourselves out of the social media scrolling is what I'm seeing. There's this scrolling going on and we're just in that one spot, aren't we? We just get hooked into that. Let's just get ourselves out of that and really start making a choice that makes us feel good for ourselves. Is that what feels right?
Amazing. Sounds really good. And if anybody was to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you? Facebook, Instagram, YouTube?
Facebook, I think, is more. I'm on all three. So I'm on Facebook as Susie Antara Creative. I'm on Instagram as Susie Antara Creative, and my YouTube channel is Susie Antara Creative.
Now the links are down below, so
yeah.
anybody.
So I also do a collaboration on YouTube with my lovely friend Larkin, who lives in America, and we do a Monday night live via YouTube, which is then streamed to our social medias as well, and that's called Angels in Action. But yeah, just through I guess my main platform at the moment is Facebook. So just contacting me there through that. And I do have my private subscribers groups called Susie Antara Creative Academy. And at the moment, if you don't mind me sharing, it's 99 pence to join.
Not at all. That's
So,
amazing. It's lovely being chatting to you.
thank you.
And I do believe that she'll have her Oracle cards by the end of the week, because we'll put it that she has uploaded into Decable so that you can really those cards by the time this video goes live. So fingers crossed for that. And I'll put the link down below as well for Susie, so you can get those cards also. Absolute pleasure, my darling.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. You've been amazing. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to it.
Have you got any questions before we finish?
No, I don't think so. It's just been amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing you do this with everybody else as well, and just watching your what do we call them, vlogs?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're such an inspiration, Anne, is all I can say. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and to meet you in person is wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. And if anybody would like to subscribe, please subscribe below. It really does help the channel. And also you'll get, whenever we have new things coming in, talking about all things spiritual, dimensions, Arcturians, other dimensional beings, Akashic Records, you name it, we'll be talking about Oracle decks, spiritual tools, spiritual practices we'll be going through on the channel as well. So, and we'll have lovely people like Susie who'll be coming and getting interviewed about what they're up to in the world. So please subscribe and come over to our channel and help us grow.